Hello. Today we're speaking to you from God's Word. We're looking at Judges from chapter 7, verse 1 to chapter 9, verse 33. This is the story of Gideon. Before the Israelites chose a king, they had what were called judges. Now the word doesn't translate, obviously. These are warriors, warlords. They were defenders of the faith. The most famous being, of course, Samson for his great strength. But the last of them was Samuel, who was a prophet, a clairvoyant. They called him a seer in the scriptures. But amongst these was Gideon. Now Gideon is an interesting character because he didn't want to be a judge. He didn't see himself as fit to be a judge. So one day an angel turns up at his threshing floor, and they've been having trouble with Midianites, a tribe of ravagers. And he chose him. He said, you're it, Gideon. You're going to lead your people. And Gideon was very doubtful, took a lot of convincing, but eventually he did lead the people. So here we are in chapter 7, verse 1. Gideon defeats the Midianites. One day Gideon and all his men got up early and they camped. The Lord said to Gideon, these men are too many. There were 32,000. They might think that they've won this battle, he says in 7 verse 2. They'll give themselves credit and me, God, no credit. So God says, time to winnow them. So to get rid of them, just say, anyone who's afraid, stay behind. So they stay behind. 22,000 left, but 10,000 stayed. God said to Gideon in verse 4, you still have too many people. Take them down to the water. I'll separate them for you there. And he chooses between people who lap the water out of their hand and others who bend down like dogs and lick it out of the water. Backsides up in the air. So anyone who kneels to drink, get rid of. Only 300 in verse 6 scooped up water in their hands and lapped it. All the others knelt down to drink. They've got an interesting thing there, a religion where they kneel down and show their bums to God. And these guys sit upright and are fully aware. So God chooses those 300. The Lord says, I will give you victory and rescue you with these 300 who lap the water. That's in 7 verse 7. So Gideon goes on to have a great victory. He uses imagination and frightens the enemy, and the enemy start slashing themselves. Then he calls his allies. So in verse 21 and 22, Gideon's men blew the trumpets, but the Lord made the enemy. So this is in Judges 7:22. The Lord made the enemy troops attack each other with their swords. Then they ran away, pursued by Gideon. Then the men from the tribes of Naphtali, Asher, and East and West Manasseh, so only 4 tribes, and they chased after the Midianite enemy. Gideon sent messengers throughout the hill country of Ephraim, that's a 5th tribe, saying, come down and help us fight the Midianites. The men of Midian came together, and they held the river Jordan and the streams as far as Beth Barah. They continued pursuing the Midianites until they captured the chiefs Zeb and Oreb, and they killed both of them. Then they brought the heads back to Gideon. In chapter 8, the final defeat of the Midianites, the people of Ephraim said to Gideon, why didn't you call us when you went to fight the Midianites? Why did you treat us like this? And they complained bitterly. In scripture we're told that Ephraimites were very angry people. Ephraim, their founder, was an angry person. He told them, oh look, he's very good at politics. Oh look, everything I did is nothing compared to what you've done. Even the little that you people of Ephraim did is worth more than all that my whole clan did. And he earlier had told the angel that my clan is the smallest. My family is the smallest in my clan. My clan is the smallest in the tribe. And our tribe is the smallest in the whole of Israel. Why would you choose me to liberate Israel? The angel said, well, that's why. And that's why God chose the 300. So Gideon is throughout history, and we've got a group called the Gideons who put Bibles, tiny little Bibles, in people's pockets. They put Bibles in hotel rooms, hospital rooms. A little little portion, but it grows a big lot. Like Jesus said, if it's the smallest seed you plant it becomes the biggest tree in the world. So Gideon says here, he's a very humble person. Everything I did is nothing compared to what you did. Even the little that you did is more than my whole clan, my tiny little clan, my tiny little family, my tiny little tribe. After all, what have I done to compare with this? He says in 8 verse 3. When he said this, they were no longer angry, because the Ephraimites are angry people, but also arrogant people. And you often find these two go together. By the time Gideon and his 300 across the Jordan, and then they pursued, and they went to these two towns. There was the town of Succoth, in 8 verse 4, 5, 6. The leaders of Succoth said, we're not going to feed your army, go away. In 8 verse 8, Gideon goes to Penuel, made the same request, and Penuel gave the same answer as the people of Succoth. And he said, I'll pay you back when I come back, to both towns. Then he captured the enemy. Zebah and Zalmunna were at Karkor with their army. The whole army of the desert tribesmen, only 15,000 were left. 120,000 had been killed. This is in Judges 8 verse 10. He manages to defeat them. He goes back and then punishes the towns. Then he kills the two kings, Zebah and Zalmunna. After that, it says in 8:22, the Israelites said to Gideon, be our ruler, you and your descendants after you. You have saved us from the Midianites. Now this is where Gideon makes an error. He says, he's still humble. He's terribly humble. I will not be your ruler, nor my son. The Lord alone is king. Okay. Well, 24. But then he went on to say, now here's something which can't be explained, and you probably won't hear this preached about. Let me ask one small favour of you. Every one of you give me the earrings you took. In brackets, the Midianites, like all desert people, wear gold earrings. Close brackets. Now, the reason given in history is that they didn't carry cash, so they would load up all their gold in their earrings. They'd have the women would have these elaborate embroidered jewellery all over them. And if you've seen some of the Bedouin wedding dresses, they're just coins, because they didn't have banks. They used to literally carry their money around their neck and on their ears, saying, look at me, I'm rich. So this is the custom. So they took the Midianite earrings. Now it's 120,000 plus the 15,000 they killed, plus the kings. So it says they spread out a cloth and everyone put on the earrings he had taken, the gold earrings. 8 verse 26. Gideon weighed 40 pounds. I don't know what that is in kilos. Not including the ornaments, the necklaces, the purple clothes the kings of Midian wore, nor the collars around the necks of their camels. Gideon made an idol from the gold and put it in his hometown of Ophrah. All the Israelites abandoned God and went there to worship the idol. It became a trap for Gideon and his family. That's Judges 8:27. Midian were defeated. Israel had peace for 40 years until Gideon died. Gideon had, in verse 29:30, he had 70 sons from many wives. He had a concubine in Shechem. She bore him a son called Abimelech. Gideon's son of Joash died, but after his death, in verse 33 of chapter 8, his death, the people of Israel became unfaithful to God, worshipped the Baals. They made Baal of the covenant their God. Now who's that? It's possibly Baal of the covenant is this statue which Gideon himself made. They no longer served the Lord, in verse 34, the one who had saved them from their enemies. They were no longer grateful to the family of Gideon for all the good he had done. Now chapter 9 is Abimelech. Abimelech, the concubine's son, goes to the people of Succoth and says, went to the town of Shechem where all his mother's relatives lived and said to them, what would you prefer, to be ruled by 70 of Gideon's sons or one man? Remember, I am your flesh and blood. His relatives, mother's relatives, talked to the men of Shechem, and they paid him 70 pieces of silver in chapter 9, verse 4, from the temple of Baal of the covenant, and with this money he hired worthless scoundrels to join him. He went to his father's house in Ophrah, and there on top of a single stone he killed his 70 brothers, Gideon's sons. Only one escaped, Jotham, Gideon's youngest son. He hid and was not killed. He later confronts Abimelech and curses them. And after they have killed all the brothers, Shechem, and down to 16, the curse goes on and on. 22, Judges 9:22. Abimelech ruled Israel for 3 years. Then God made Abimelech and the men of Shechem hostile to one another, and they rebelled. Now there's a strange battle goes on there. This one attacks this one ambushes this one boasts, this one runs away, and eventually they get into this very strange fight. So Abimelech confronts the people of Shechem and attacks them. Now these are the people who've helped him, but these are crazy days. The next day Abimelech found out the people of Shechem were planning to go out to the fields, so he took his men, divided them in 3 groups, hid in the fields. He saw the people coming out, and he came out of hiding to kill them. Well, one group rushed the city gate. The other 2 companies attacked the people in fields and killed them all. The fighting continued all day long. He captured the city, Judges 9:46. He killed all of its people, and then all the leading men of Shechem hid in the fort. When Abimelech was told they were there, in verse 47, he gathered around his men, put timber around it, and set fire to it. Then they set fire to it, and in 49, all the people inside died, 1,000 men and women. So Shechem, who were the allies of Abimelech, all been massacred. Why? Simply to fulfill the promise. Then Abimelech went to Thebes, surrounded that city and captured it. There was a strong tower there, and every man and woman in the city ran to it. They locked themselves in. So all these cities seem to have safety towers, defense towers. So you can breach the walls, but you can't capture the town. We've seen that in movies like Lord of the Rings, that there are inner defences and inner defences and inner defences. They locked themselves in. Abimelech went to attack the tower. He set fire to the tower. He went to the door to set fire to the tower, but a woman dropped a grinding stone, these are heavy things, on his head and fractured his skull. Then he called for his servant, his shield bearer, and said, "Run me through." And in 54, the man ran him through. The Israelites saw that Abimelech was dead. They all went home. In 56, so it was that God paid Abimelech back for the crime he committed against his father in killing his 70 brothers. God also made the men of Shechem suffer for their wickedness, just as Gideon's surviving son had said they would when he cursed them. Now, why is that passage in the Bible, but why is it never preached on? Well, it shows that in crazy times people do crazy things. We're living in a time of COVID. This is you could call it the second year of COVID. This started, for most of us, it started around February 2020. This is now, it's 13th of August 2021. So it's a year and a half since we've been living in the age of COVID. You turn on the news, all you get is hour after hour after hour of statistics. Every channel you turn to, the one story, the only story, is statistics. Death, infections, inoculation rates, number of people, contact precaution, number of people, what towns are on quarantines, who's in the red zone, who's in the green zone, where the travel permits are, and it just goes on. That's all the news is. Whereas you listen to informed radio, they don't tell you any of that. There are coups going on. There are 3 presidents have been murdered around the world. The president of Burundi, the president of Haiti was assassinated by 28 mercenaries, Colombians and Americans who came in. This is all being ignored by the press who keep telling us COVID. There are coups going on. There are wars, as the Bible says, the wars and rumours of wars. There is turmoil. There are famines, there's floods. Sicily yesterday recorded a European record temperature of 48.8. Canada 2 weeks ago, British Columbia, had a record temperature of 49 degrees centigrade. People are panicking, people are dying, forests are on fire across the Mediterranean. There's storms, there's natural disasters. The Olympics came and went. It's pretty much ignored by most of the world's population. What's going on? We're living in crazy times. In the time of Judges, you can see that Gideon was called by God. He was called by an angel. An angel appeared to him and spoke to him, and God spoke to him on multiple occasions and gave him signs and wonders, and he followed, and he had a fantastic victory. 300 men defeated 135,000. We're told 120,000 were killed in battle, 15,000 made a last stand and they were massacred. The two leaders, Zeb and Zoreb, Zebah and Zalmunna, the two kings, all died. Everybody died. Every single Midianite was killed. And then Gideon turned victory into defeat. So he was and this is probably why it's not preached on. Everyone remembers Gideon's great victory. Everyone remembers the 300 fighting the 135,000. Imagine that, 300 fought the 135,000. Initially he had 32,000 and God said too many. He cut it down to 12,000. God said still too many. 300, just right. God says, now I get the credit. You don't get the credit. But in fact, Gideon got the credit. But Gideon did something very strange. He proved himself to be humble right from start to finish, but his humility destroyed the result that God had given him. He built an idol and the people worshipped it. And it says they abandoned God and they followed this idol. How was that a godly result? What was Gideon thinking? Yes, you're humble. We meet people today, they say, oh, we're living in crazy times and we're just going to circle the wagons. We have the situation where people are given the opportunity now to witness because there are so many frightened people after a year and a half of COVID and the endless drumbeat, death, panic. We're now talking about vaccine passports. 4 cities in America, New York, others are taking up these vaccine passports. You won't be able to trade, you won't be able to buy and sell. Some Christians are saying it's the mark of the beast, others are saying it's the Antichrist. They're running afraid. Mario Cuomo had to quit. He brought down Trump and now he's been brought down himself. So there's turmoil on the left, turmoil on the right. Nobody knows where to turn to, who to follow. They're looking for leadership. And Gideon is there and he says, oh yeah, I led this great victory. I did these miraculous things. I've got the ear of God. God talks to me. God appears to me. He sends his angels. But I refuse to lead you. And people go, what? So he brought them 40 years of peace. And then his 70 sons, who should have inherited the mantle, he said, no, my sons won't reign. So a concubine's son turns up and murders the 70 legitimate heirs. And he's the illegitimate heir, literally, and he pushes in. And he rules Israel for 3 years, and then he's killed. He's stoned in the head by an old woman. She drops a brick on his head. We're thinking, this is crazy. Where's the story going? And then this is after he's murdered all these co-conspirators in Shechem, the ones who'd handed over the 70 sons of Gideon to be murdered, except for the one Jotham who survived. We're thinking, we're living in crazy times. When has it ever been this crazy? Judges. Now this is 3,000 years ago. There's a crazy theory called evolution, which a lot of people promote because they want to be able to murder their children, they want to be able to murder other people, they want to carry out eugenics, euthanasia, say that people are just protoplasm, they don't really count for anything, you're nothing, you're just a descended from pond slime, you're a monkey crawled out of a tree, we can kill you in your millions and it doesn't matter. Well, evolution is disproven in these stories from 3,000 years ago. People are just as silly then, just as silly today. We haven't evolved. We do whatever we're told. We're told, get the passport or else. Told to get the vax or else. Then there's people saying, I believe in this. Other people say, no, I worship the government. Whatever the government tells me to do, I'll do it. They tell me to kill my children, I'll do it. Divorce my husband, I'll do it. Steal someone else's job, I'll do it. Tell me I'm equal, well, no, I'm not. I'll do it. I believe whatever I'm told. I'm a complete puppet and a stooge. And other people, I think at least half the population say, hang on, that doesn't make sense. I refuse. I'm not doing that. So throughout history, from the time of Gideon, 3,000 years ago, from 6,000, what is it? I think the Jewish year today is 5,700 and something. They date the calendar from Adam and Eve and creation. This is the accurate. It's not squillions and billions and trillions and zwillions of years, oh, in the dim dark past. No, the earth is less than 6,000 years old. Follow it from day one, Adam and Eve, to today, and everything has been will of God or in opposition to God. You have that choice. Serve God like Gideon did, even though he slipped up. Can we really blame his 70 sons for being murdered when their father said, no, they won't rule? Well, what's going to happen to them? Well, Abimelech says, well, they mightn't rule, but I certainly will. He had the ambition they lacked, and so he killed them. Did Gideon make a mistake in building the idol? Yes. Why did he do it? What was in his mind? God didn't tell him to do that. God told him to do this, do this, do this, do this. But God didn't say build an idol. All throughout the previous times, Moses and others do not worship idols. So he is a man, the hand of God, and he worships, he builds an idol. Doesn't make any sense. But today we're doing a lot of things that don't make any sense. We've got to always be like Gideon in the first half. Obey the hand of God. Listen for the hand of God. Seek him in his word and you will find him. But don't go beyond that. Don't do what Gideon did. Don't do what Abimelech did and say, look, the 70 sons of Gideon are told they can't rule, but I'll jump in and do it. Don't be like the leaders of Shechem and say, yeah, we're going to hand over the people of, we're going to help Abimelech usurp Gideon's sons. They could have come to an accommodation, but no, they said, yeah, sure, we'll do evil. Why not? Oh, he's a friend of ours. Yeah, he's a buddy. And they fell into evil. They all paid for it. Eventually, Abimelech literally got his brains beat out. With an old woman dropped a brick on his head, and he said, I'm so ashamed. Someone kill me. I'll die of shame. And his sword bearer ran him through. And when everybody in Israel saw, it says, when they saw Abimelech was dead, the spell was broken, and they just went home. What does it take to break the spell that's binding us? Follow God, seek God in his word. He comes to us in dreams, he comes to us in visions, he comes to us in utterances, through circumstances, conditions. Seek God.